You're listening to Around Comics. 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 Comics.
You are listening to Around Comics episode 446.
Oh my God.
What?
It's
No.
446. 446. It is the new year. It's 2023, the first Around Comics of 2023.
Yeah.
I'm Brian Salazar. With me, as always, of course, is back from Mexico, Mr. Christopher Niesman.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
And back from, I don't know where you were at, Tom, but I'm sure you were somewhere.
Michigan.
Michigan, back from Michigan, Mr. Tom
Yeah.
Caters. What's
Hey,
happening?
what's up?
fellas?
2023 is going to be the year that we're good. This podcast is good. We're
Oh,
finally
God.
gonna- Oh,
God.
no.
Of course, Chris has a
Luchador Chris.
luchador.
Luchador.
That's
Dude, it was
cultural
the most
appropriation.
amazing thing. If you've never been to a Lucha Libre, it was amazing. This is my Mystico mask.
Wonderful, wonderful. You stole
I'm
that
gonna,
off.
I'm
the
gonna,
Lucha
I'm gonna
Libre?
plow snow in that thing.
Is it warm? Is it keeping you warm?
Keeps the wind off you.
Welcome back. Welcome back from Mexico City. And sorry, I'm trying to adjust my camera so I don't have.
Puebla, Mexico City, Puebla City, Oaxaca, Huatuco, and Puerto Escondido.
Wow, that's a lot. Did you bring my Tijuana Bibles? That's all I want to know. Did you get any?
No,
Any-
but I did. We'll talk about it. I went to a comic shop in Mexico City. That was
did?
awesome, and I brought back some goodies.
I did post that on the Patreon.
Oh, did you?
Exclusive to the Patreon. Chris had sent a video, and it is on our Patreon page. If you'd like to see that, for now, maybe
Yeah.
we'll post it publicly later. But yeah,
It
for
was
now
cool.
it's an exclusive.
I was this close to buying the Spanish version of Lost Girls.
What are you gonna do with it? You like
Yeah.
why would you?
It was just one of those. I turned like a corner
Yeah.
in the comic shop. I was like, "Holy shit! They've got
Oh.
Lost Girls here." And it's
I almost did tell you to pick up the Spanish version of The Dark Knight Returns for me, just because it'd be
Right.
like, oh, it'd be kind of interesting to have. But yeah, I
yeah. Let me find.
but I didn't know what I would do with it
So,
after
Tom,
that.
I didn't know
other
what
than-
to
Yeah.
get you. I got
So you
like
were
some
doing
mezcal or
it.
something, but I did get this. I got this I got something for Sal, and I got something for Will, because Will's a huge Dan Klaus fan. But I did pick up this for Sal. It's,
Wally Wood,
yeah,
the
it's,
Spanish version of Wally Wood's Mad Magazine stuff.
yeah.
How cool! Well,
Yeah,
thank
it's-
you.
Yeah, so I'll send this to you. I've got plenty of the comic shop, by the way, was Global Comics, and I picked up. They threw a bunch of pretty cool bookmarks in the bag. So
Nice.
I got some. I got a lot of very cool bookmarks in Mexico, apparently. So pick this out. It's a wood, just bird.
Burt bookmark.
Yeah.
Bird mark.
Yeah, a bunch of a bird mark. And I got this for Will. Like I said, he's a big Dan Klaus fan.
Sure.
That's his guy. So
Very nice. Very nice.
20th century Bolo Ocho.
But
Yeah.
fun.
Yep.
So the comic shop in Mexico City. What did you? It was Global Comics. Is that what you
Global Comics. I think you can. It's Global Comics Condesa. If you can find it. Everything is they're so hip down there. Everything's on the gram. It's all the gram. Oh, it's globalcomics.com.mx.
Oh, nice. Global.
Yeah.
Nice.
Almost no single issues at this one. It was all trades, and it was weird seeing like a gigantic manga section in Spanish.
Yeah, that's cool. They must have been a pretty together store to have like bookmarks to give you. So I'm imagining this wasn't a frightening like hole in the wall, like
If there was
hoarder situation.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Challengers comics of Mexico City. It was in kind of a, nice neighborhood, and yeah, it was laid out really nicely. They kept all of the Lost Girls were in the back, kind of thing. But yeah, it was they had everything. It's
At least that's what they told Chris. The Lost
Right.
Girls are in the back.
Lost Girls are in the back.
There's something wrong about that's a horror movie. I'm looking for the Lost Girls.
I'm looking for they're just like,
what?
There you go. This white guy is asking about Lost Girls.
Like DKR, like hardcovers, and like all of like the big classics were there in Spanish. Sandman and
Swamp
and
Thing in Spanish.
What?
Oh, I'm holding it. I'm Swamp Thing in Spanish. I'm holding it up, but my camera just died. So give me a second.
Yeah, I didn't see any Swamp Thing in Spanish, but they had a lot of Mobius. Oh, look at that.
I'm changing my camera now.
But yeah, it's Chicas Perdidas.
A lot of Mobius. The Blueberry, which was, did he do that under the Jean Girard? He did that under his real name. That is Nom de Plume.
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't have any answers on anything.
Yeah. A lot of Jodorowsky. So yeah, it was cool.
Very cool.
We were there on Christmas, and so there was another comic shop in kind of the Zocalo, which is like the town square, and it looked quite a bit seedier. It was in one of those even though I have a feeling I probably would have gotten in there and it would have been fine, but it looked seedy AF from the outside.
So so you sent me the video, and it was very cool. You walking into the store and sort of going around. So did you ask them beforehand?
Yes.
Because I'm like,
I had already shopped.
They're like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah, no, it was a really sweet gal behind the counter, spoke like almost no English, and I was just like, "Can I take a video?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, fine." She was total, she was probably like 22 years old, could give no fucks what I was doing in there.
It didn't give a shit what you had to do. That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't like barge in. It's like raw expose.
I'm in here to film. Like, what are comic stores like?
Yeah, no, it was cool.
That is cool. That's awesome.
Mexico. I don't want to go on and on about it, but yeah, we had a great time. Mexico is, in a word, colorful. It's I took probably thousands of pictures and edited them down to, I think I got down to like 670 edited photos from the trip, and it's none of them are going to be in black and white whenever we have whatever we want to have framed. It was just color and art. I mean, the murals. I think, did I send you the RoboCop mural from?
Oh,
you
yeah,
did.
yeah.
From whatever. What I think that was maybe Puebla City. Just the murals and art everywhere.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, beautiful country.
It can be.
Yes.
Oh, very awesome. Well, good that you're back.
Did you guys know that Swamp Thing is now a Black Label book? The Alan Moore.
What?
Yeah. When I got this for Christmas, I got like the newly printed, like collected Saga of the Swamp Thing like box set with trades inside of it. I have a lot of the issues and I've read all of them, but I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I kind of want all of them together.
Are those hardcovers or trades?
They're trades. They are trades. Oh, I'm back. But
there he is.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that I was like, oh, I guess it's a Black Label book now. And I was like,
is it on like the newsprinty paper, or is it glossy?
It's like an in-betweenish a little bit. Not bad though. It's not like too glossy.
Okay.
It's like a little bit more than, it's like a little bit closer to that than that very newsprinty type that some of them have. Yeah.
They did these a few years ago, and it's when DC, which I actually appreciated. It's on like that just step above newsprint, so it really does feel almost vintage, almost too vintage. Where I'm like, Yeah, you could have had a little bit nicer paper.
Is that one that you have a Vertigo, or is it
This
still?
is it's probably the last Vertigo one. Oops.
Isn't it weird to like change it? I feel like it is.
It started out as it started out as a DC book. Whenever they first started, it was straight. It was. I mean, God, there was a Justice League crossover in the first volume.
But it's weird because like Vertigo was a thing, and it was like, oh, that was a Vertigo book. It feels weird for it to have switched because I don't think of it. It's like Black Label is not that old, right? Like it just feels very like
4 or 5 years, maybe.
Because I just feel like the name, the publish, whatever the publishing house is such a component of like of the book in a way where you're sort of like, oh yeah, that was like a lot of those were Vertigo issues, and Vertigo had a certain thing, and that was what they did. It just struck me as very strange.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the publishing history of like what the first Vertigo imprinted book was.
But are they doing that with other Vertigo books?
Well, according to Wikipedia, in June of 2020 or 2019, DC announced that Vertigo would be discontinued as part of a plan to publish all the company's comics under a single banner, with DC Black Label taking its place as the DC's mature reader imprint. So even though on their website there's still a DC Vertigo section, and like because Lucifer and Sandman and that stuff
was Vertigo. Fables was Vertigo, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but it just came back out. Did it come out? I don't think it came out under
Black Label. Yeah, they're trying to put everything under the DC umbrella.
Huh.
Which kind of makes sense a little bit. I think Vertigo was. I don't want to say that Vertigo was. They put it under that imprint to kind of compete with the Images and Dark Horses of the world. It's like, like maybe DC wasn't hip enough, so they needed that non-DC label to do more creator-owned stuff.
Well, it was the Swamp Thing is what kind of created it, Vertigo.
Yeah,
because
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Well, it couldn't pass the Comics Code Authority. So that's why it had to be labeled as a mature imprint under Vertigo. They couldn't publish it under the straight DC banner, I guess. So and then it sort of grew out of that, more and more titles, and Vertigo became the adult line of DC Comics. But now
Preacher and 100 Bullets, and
I don't know why you would necessarily want to change it from Vertigo to Black Label. I don't know what the difference is necessarily in publishing or why that makes any sense, unless it, Karen Berger was let go from DC, and then maybe I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what the thinking is behind it.
Yeah, kind of felt like Vertigo
Swamp Thing. I can kind of see like the characters that interact with like the main DC universe. I could be like, yeah, Swamp Thing. Okay, I get it. Because you'll see Swamp Thing in DC books, but it feels so strange that books that don't touch like the DC universe, like would get that label thrown on them. But who am I?
Yeah,
I'm just a Joe Schmo who reads it. I'm sure there's
the kids don't care. The kids don't care about Vertigo comics anymore. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, nobody under the age of 35 gives a shit about Vertigo. Like what, it was such an important thing to us, because it was that, stamp of something different coming from mainstream comic book publisher. And the quality of Vertigo was always pretty high. And, but I think, the next generation and the next generation, they don't have any connection to Vertigo comics at all. So Black Label, Vertigo, whatever it is, I'm sure there's some very wise decision behind it all.
Yeah, I'm sure a lawyer was involved.
Yeah.
What was the Marvel imprint that they had whenever, like, with Bendis and
was that Icon?
Yeah, like Straczynski and Bendis and
that was that was just to keep Bendis from like making leaving to just do his own comics, I think.
Well, they wanted a piece of that Powers action.
I think more than anything.
Did Criminal start at Icon?
I think it did.
Yeah.
That was. I remember talking. I don't know if it was Brubaker or who we were talking to at some point, and this may have been like not on microphone. It may have been like at in a personal conversation. But someone I remember at the time talking about it, and it was sort of like, yeah, it was literally something that Marvel created to keep creators from leaving, because it was you gotta like at that time it was sort of the beginning of the idea of guys like Bendis could have left Marvel and been incredibly successful with his own comics. He was publishing his own stuff and being successful, and they saw the writing on the wall of like what happens a lot today, which is guys come in, they do a popular book, they get a name, and then they go and make their own comics through Image or whoever.
Oh, and they get movie deals out of them.
Yeah, they get to keep the rights. So that was what Icon was okay. You can publish through us. You keep the rights to it, and we keep you happy, but you stay with Marvel was what Icon really was, I think, at that time. This is all hearsay. I will just say.
But it was pretty obvious.
It was pretty obvious that was like the purpose of it. It wasn't like they were getting unknown dudes.
Right.
Which was like a little bit of different, Vertigo, obviously stemming from, Alan Moore's making this comic that we can't publish to go for it. But Vertigo would publish, just like wild shit from people you didn't know. Like it was not solely sort of like, not a vanity, but like a very specific imprint meant for like a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Like Will's first published work at DC was a Vertigo. That was Finals? He and Jill Thompson.
Was that his first thing?
I think it may have been his first thing at DC, but yeah, it was a Vertigo book. Yeah, it's kind of like everything weird and not in capes and cowls kind of went under DC.
Let's see. 1990. Yeah, there was the launch writers: Grant Morrison, Peter Milligan, Garth Ennis, Jamie Delano, and then J.D. Mateus came on, Mike Carey, Brian K. Vaughan, Ed Brubaker, Bill Wellingham, Peter Gross, Dean Armstrong, Duncan Fregado, Jill Thompson,
a lot of Hellblazer in
Sean
there.
Phillips, Dave McKean, Brian Boland, Glenn Fabry. Those were all Vertigo.
Which was basically Hellblazer and Sandman, and what was the other probably big one at that? Was Preacher that early? Because I know you said Ennis.
Yeah, Preacher.
Yeah,
Constantine, 100 Bullets. Here's some Vertigo TV and film properties: Swamp Thing, The Return of Swamp Thing, Constantine, A History of Violence, V for Vendetta.
Oh God, yeah.
Watchmen, The Losers, The Kitchen, which I wasn't familiar with that, and then TV shows: Human Target, Constantine TV, iZombie, Lucifer, Preacher, Watchmen, Swamp Thing, Sweet Tooth.
Wasn't they have Watchmen as a fucking Vertigo title? That was like 15 years before Vertigo.
Why the Last Man and Sandman, of course. Vertigo has a proud history for sure, and I guess that's the it did. And now, the history still exists. It still exists. But there will be no more Vertigo. I wonder if you could go out and create like Vertigo comics.
No,
DC would sue Warner Brothers would sue the shit out of you.
Yeah. Oh, they still own that.
They still own it.
Well, now I have a bunch of Swamp Thing to reread, so it was a pleasant Christmas gift to receive. Anytime you can get a big chunk of great comics, it's always like, oh, okay. Now I just have to find room in my house for them and just carry them with me till I die.
Yes.
And that.
I read a ton on vacation. I had like 30 hours of airplane and bus rides.
Wow.
Yeah.
What you read? What's your hottest take on the books you read?
The hot
takes only.
Hot takes are, I'm a total Star Wars nerd right now, and Charles Soule has written some really, really fun and entertaining Star Wars comics.
It's not a hot take.
Hot take.
Hotter take.
That's like not even a warm take. It's like
Saga makes me sad.
Saga.
Yeah,
sad.
BKB and what Fiona Staples. Man, I really love the first 20, 22 issues of that, and then I read up to like issue 30. Checked it out through Hoopla, and by about issue 30, I'm just like, this book is kind of fucking depressing.
Yeah. I fell off of it after a while. I was certainly I don't know how many issues I read, but quite a few of that
like
book.
The first 24 are so good.
Yeah.
You know, like where it's like, oh damn, this is great. And then it just kind of loses momentum a little bit, and kind of like, I don't know, like that first run was so like, oh, what happens next? You know, like you fly through that book because like the pace of it.
Then
so
it,
like,
then it kind of becomes about how this family that you are really vested in and have grown to be, really attached and love these characters. It's about them slowly disintegrating and this family falling apart.
Children ruin everything, and it's no different in comics. It's as a parent, I don't necessarily want to read fantasy about parenthood. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like that shift from like a book that was sort of like what happens next, crazy twists and turns, and like
it's very much like life. You're in your teens and 20s. It's exciting adventure. You never know what's coming next. And boring, then it's the same boring thing over and over again every goddamn day.
Yeah.
Until they're old enough to leave. God damn it. And then maybe you get a couple of years at the end of your pathetic fucking life back. And so
turn to drugs
to make things interesting.
Yeah, drugs, alcohol, and general weirdness, and just to try and capture that feeling again that you once had, but you never can. And you just try not to eat a fucking bullet. Until you die.
Yeah. So that's kind of that was my hot take on Saga. What I finally got back to revisit, and I'm glad I did. It's been a long time since I've read the Lazarus series from Greg Rucka and Michael Lark. That's been kind of a slowly released series that's been coming out since like 2014 or something, and so I kind of caught up and read the 7th trade of that, and it feels like it is kind of the penultimate trade that they're getting ready to wrap the story up. Really good. It has a lot of Succession vibe to it, and I say that having not watched a whole lot of Succession, but that's a lot of what that book is about the family dynamic of these kind of like empire type families that run the world, post economic apocalypse basically. And you've got that grounded character in Forever, which you follow, but it's really about the power struggles of these families that kind of rule the world. And it's if that's kind of your jam, it's done really, really well.
Cool.
Nice. Very good.
Nice.
I don't know how I started reading Sin City Volume 7, which is Hell and Back, I think. And I don't know why, but I was like, oh, is this new? Did this just come out recently? And then I realized, no, this came out like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, to look back on that time with Frank Miller because it's very different than like the 80s or even 90s version of Frank Miller art. But it's it's also like, oh, this is kind of more of the same as far as story. It's always with Sin City. Sin City is kind of like, I love the Sin City stuff. I love all the but it is sort of paper thin story wise, like things
no one's gonna accuse it of being like a timeless story.
No, they're very
not multi-layered.
Yeah,
they're kind of right there. Yeah.
But they don't pretend to be. Like, he doesn't,
totally.
It doesn't, it is what it is. But it's interesting, like someone that grew up worshiping Frank Miller from like the Daredevil and the Dark Knight Returns and that style of art, and just like, just bowing down at the altar of Frank Miller, and then seeing that a lot of what I loved in Frank Miller's art was Klaus Janson, the inker, and then seeing Frank without Klaus and evolving as an artist and changing, and it's interesting. And at first I was kind of turned off by it to some degree, but then you kind of go back and look at it some more, and it's like, wow, it's really like efficient. Like, it's incredibly, he doesn't waste anything. He doesn't waste any sort of brush strokes.
It's like sort of brutal.
Yeah.
In that sense. Not in like that's horrible, but in sort of like the monolithic like directness of like how he approaches like all the art, like where it's very like boom, like just kind of pummels you.
Yes, absolutely. It really does. And it's fascinating to sort of see like what he chooses to give detail to and what he chooses to sort of leave very, very stark or very plain, simple. Because he does, like, there's times where he adds, a ton of detail to something, and then there's times where it's like incredibly, the sort of what do they call, just sort of that black and white starkness that he will do, and
almost to the point where you could kind of like lose track of what it actually is.
Yeah. Because it's black.
It's like a glint of light that becomes
something.
It's black, but then there's a hint of something there through that stark white and black.
Well, and that's the fascinating thing, because like, he's obviously drawn at some point, or he sees the entire figure, and then he's just sort of like going, okay, I'm only going to show where the light picks up on this darkness here and here and here, but I know where the whole figure is, or the whole building, or the whole whatever it is. There's one panel, and it's like a lizard. It's like a bearded dragon or something that's in the book, and it's almost like secondary. It doesn't really have anything to do with the story. It's just on this page, and it's fascinating, like, to look at what he chose to light on this lizard. It's just like the lip and the eyebrow, and just, but it's like he absolutely drew an entire lizard, but only showed you what he wanted to show you. And it's like, man, it is really masterful, whether you kind of like dig the style or not, when you kind of look into it. But so that's what I've been.
He's great at directing your attention.
Yes.
In very subtle ways.
Yeah. And there's things, like, honestly, that he does that it's just like, I don't know. Why he chooses some things, but whatever. He's Frank Miller. Who am I to fucking argue? But
he does what he does.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to kind of go back. That's the thing. Like, at this point in my life, I've started to realize, like, it's really interesting to enjoy things that I enjoyed when I was younger, but now on a completely different level.
Yeah.
And I enjoy some things, and we'll talk about this on Film Force 5 soon. If you haven't listened to Film Force 5, the movie top 5 movie podcast, but with the Coen brothers, because there's movies with the Coen brothers that I loved other movies more than some, and now the ones that I didn't love as much, I love even more than the ones that I used to love. You know what I mean? Like there's things where it's like watching it again. It's like, oh my God, I never even picked up on that. I never even realized or the depth of it or the emotion that's there. I never really got at that.
I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's probably their best.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting, but like Frank's stuff too. It was just like going back and reading old comics.
Speaking of Millers.
Speaking of Millers, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've said before where there was a period of time where I felt like Dark Knight felt dated, felt like of the 80s, but now I'm like, oh, no, it's like
now it's
incredibly prescient.
It's timeless.
It's so
it's almost
like, oh no, I'm like, yeah, where it's like, oh my God, yeah, like this is more relevant than, you know, another book I love, Watchmen. You know, if you really want to talk about like what, like someone sort of like perhaps diagnosing something within our culture.
That's a really good point. Watchmen's way more dated at this point.
Yeah.
Tonally, you know, it's like we're not thinking about nuclear war, like you know what I mean? In that same sense, like we once were, like the destruction of the planet. But fascism is a good, yeah.
And sort of like the weird, like, oh, do I like what? Why do I sort of like this guy, or do I not like it? You know, like you can't quite like wrap your head around the feeling of it, of like what Batman is, and sort of like, I think he makes you a little uncomfortable. You know, even if you like Batman, you're kind of like, I don't know, you know, and like finding that way of, you know, walking that line that's prescient, I think, for many people, how they feel about a lot of things, you know, in the world currently, where you're sort of like, I don't know if I actually like this institution as much as
everything. I can't enjoy anything any longer because on some level it's going to let me down. It's going to disappoint me. The people involved are going to be awful, horrible monsters. There's not like, I don't know what I can enjoy any longer because you know, it goes back to the sort of like that you know, separating the art from the artist, because it's like, I can't, we're fucking horrible. Like human beings are terrible. We just fucking are. There's no getting around it. Our nature is horrible. And we've tried to create a society where like we legislate ourselves away from being horrible, but we really are just horrible monsters walking around the earth. And
I was watching Counterpart, which you had turned me on to, and there's a point, it's the flashback of where the world with the two worlds are opened up to each other, and one of the scientists comes to this realization that at some point one of the worlds will show a weakness that the other one doesn't have, and it is unavoidable that the other world will capitalize on that in some horrific way, because when you get down to it, people are horrible. People
are fucking terrible. We're just awful. It's built into us. Like we try our best. And so I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, you know, I don't know. I can't judge everything on a, you know, sort of like atomic level anymore. I can't go, well, this person was part of this, so I have to hate it. Or this person is, you know, did something terrible, so everything they did is then sort of canceled out.
Yeah. The thing that makes me think of is like, it's almost like, so Watchmen, you know, there's Rorschach, right? And the idea, like, there's the irony that people love Rorschach, and Alan Moore wrote Rorschach to be like, you shouldn't, like, this guy is a lunatic, right? Imagine though if Alan Moore was sort of like, actually, this guy is kind of cool as hell. That's Frank Miller. That's Dark Knight. Like, that's Frank Miller. Where that lens of like that sort of ambiguity in that, right, I think is why I feel like that book is so prescient.
Do you think that? Like, do you feel that when like reading Dark Knight that Frank was like, this is badass, or that he would really.
I don't
get
know. I just use that as an example of like what you would of a way of looking at like the tone of it, of like, you know, of like Batman's this tough badass guy, but it's also like kind of sad and kind of scary, and like there's
I don't know that I look at it like that as much as I think this is sort of, and I think it's a matter of like, do we give writers enough credit, or do we give them too much credit?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you come from. It's like, oh, you know, that's kind of how you.
I don't think he did any of that consciously. I think that's just like.
But I think he consciously did go, I'm going to write a book about a middle-aged Batman confronted with a generation that he does not understand, that he thinks is wrong, and that he thinks he can fix. But by the end of that book, all of that is wrong. All that he realizes that that's not true, and that he has to work with them. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, I see what you're saying, but I think if you look at the actual like story arc of that book, this is this 50-year-old guy who's faced with aging out of the workplace and faced with this generation that he thinks is out of control, and which every generation, right? Like,
I don't want to use TikTok.
Every 50-year-old feels that about a 20-year-old. Like, that's just how you feel as a 50-year-old. But I think Frank was actually like conscious enough at that time to sort of go, that's, you know, because if you take that to the extreme, then you have like, fuck these kids, they're wrong, like, you know, and Batman.
No, I agree with you. I think that like the story arc ends there. I think maybe what it is like Frank's able to tap into that viewpoint at the beginning in a way that maybe not a lot of other authors can. Right? Whatever that conclusion is, which I agree with you, that is like the conclusion. He knows he can tap into that thing that it starts at in a way that not good or bad.
The bitter old man.
Yeah. There's like a reality to it that's like kind of uncomfortable, like, which is to his credit, right? It's like he creates like this like atmosphere of that.
Maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Maybe he, you know, maybe he was working through that himself.
Yeah,
you know, because he was at a point in his career. Well, 80. No, that was 80. He was
85. So he's probably,
he was pretty.
No, he's still pretty young there. He's in his 30s, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm like, I can't imagine that. That's like, if he wrote that now, I could see. Yeah, it would be like, it would be. What was the holy?
It wouldn't
terror.
Have that ending.
It would. Yeah, wouldn't have that.
No, we get post 9/11 Frank, who is a little fractured.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a great book, and it is.
Still talking about it all these years later.
Still talking about it. Yeah, it's like, damn, I was wrong when I said that like 15 years ago. I was totally wrong.
Hey, man, it's in hardcover in a Mexico City comic shop, man.
Yeah, totally wrong.
Any New Year's Eve? Did anybody have any New Year's Eve stories or anything interesting? Everyone's safe and
I drank a lot of mezcal.
I have decided, you know, but since we had kids, my wife and I enjoy watching like the countdown shows for the pure entertainment value of it. I mean, they're like all kind of crappy and kind of corny and like
the local shows. Right?
The local. No, I'm talking about like we used to watch like the local ones. We'll get to that in a second. Which
it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother.
Because we used to watch the Pitbull's. What was it? He had like Pitbull's New Year's Revolution, and it was kind of like it was him, and then a bunch of other people would come out and perform, and it was all sort of awkward and kind of a mess, and it was just like fun to watch because it was just kind of messy. Then that stopped happening, and my wife and I are like, well, I don't know, like Dick Clark's New Year's Rocking Eve is like a little too smooth for my taste. Like I like the sense of like something could really go wrong.
Chaos
and like
So you need CNN for that.
Well, the Miley Cyrus one,
I heard that was awesome.
Now contains that element of like, is this going off the rails? Like all of a sudden, like David Byrne from the Talking Heads is like singing with their and then then the singer Sia SIA, she's up there singing, and David Byrne comes out to like duet with her, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that was planned because he doesn't seem to know the words or like it's very strange. And then Miley sings the David Bowie song with him, and then Dolly Parton is there, and then Paris Hilton. It was like this like weird celebrity. It was great. It really scratched that itch.
It's like when is Kanye gonna show up?
It's kind of like it's kind of like when a baseball team or a sports franchise spends a shit ton of money on a bunch of free agents and they just can't gel. They just can't quite get together, and the season is just a disaster. Like
there's a great book about that, by the way. It's called The New York Mets, the worst team that money could buy.
And I want to say, I do want to pour one out for the best New Year's televised was when Snoop Dogg did it from his home during that first winter of the pandemic.
He was just DJing, right?
Yeah, the DJ. Yeah. He had a DJ there, and he was just smoking weed. It was on YouTube, and he was just drinking and smoking weed while this guy like played records in the background. Then he went outside, and like people came by, and he was just like. Was a mess.
That's a true gift from Snoop Dogg. Like to just live stream that, like, you know.
And that was great because later on, because part of it was promoting whatever show on TBS he had, they simulcasted with CNN, so he was on CNN, and immediately like such a great entertainer. The switch flipped from like YouTube Snoop Dogg to like grandmas are watching Snoop Dogg, like the Martha Stewart Snoop Dogg, just like automatic.
If you had told me 20 years ago that my 90-year-old mother-in-law would know who Snoop Dogg is, I mean,
he's famous.
Absolutely zeitgeist.
Yeah, my parents know who Snoop Dogg is. That means you're famous. When someone's old parents know who someone is, like, that person is famous.
My 90-year-old mother-in-law knows who Snoop Dogg is.
He is transcended. He is crossed over. True crossover.
You can go watch it on YouTube. It's still on there.
Nice.
Like
that's gonna happen.
Like that the entire thing. So yeah, and then for people so Chicago, the local New Year's thing. So yeah, 11 o'clock, the New York ball drops. Cool, everyone's excited. Guess what? We still have like another hour. And for whatever reason, the local stations in Chicago can't help but send them to like suburbs that are barely like it's like we're at a ballroom in Wheaton. like the old drunk Italian guys, and like in a giant city where like you could imagine like, hey, we're downtown at Navy Pier, or like it's like no, we're in like
we're going to Rosemont
in Downers Grove, like. Like waiting. And we just in Chicago we all just watched that hour of like
it's the great it's the best. And I do for local Chicagoans though, I do miss Mark Giangreco. I know he kind of got canceled or whatever. I don't know exactly. He said but Mark Giangreco was the best because he would just get drunker and drunker as the night went on, and he would get looser and looser in what he would say on camera, and he had a great rapport with I can't think of who he always did it with.
I forget it. Yeah,
blonde, he got a little Harry Carey as it went along.
Yeah, but Giangreco was the only saving grace because it would always be like, and they always do this too. Like there's I always every New Year's Eve, other than this one, I didn't at all. But usually it's like I'm flipping around from channel to channel during that hour just to find something, either completely ridiculous.
It sucks.
It's terrible. Like... It's the worst. It's the fucking worst. But and it's always like it's like I don't know, ABC or NBC will have like a young, black couple, and they're in, the city somewhere, and you don't know who they are. They're like a news anchor and like a sports, like the sports guy and a weather girl, and they put them together, and they're trying to appeal to like a young audience, and and it's just and it's always some second rate fucking musicians they have, that are either
it's gonna be Dennis DeYoung. Dennis DeYoung is gonna be on the New Year's show.
Oh, it's so awful. It's so terrible. I didn't watch anything this year at all. I watched we played board games. I got really, really drunk and drunker than I expected. And but still fine. And yeah.
My kids stayed up until midnight because I let them.
Very nice. Very nice.
So my son loves football, so he was watching like the college football playoffs until 11 o'clock. So last hour, he was ready.
Glued.
I begrudgingly
what's happening on the local
congratulate
ones?
your Packers, by the way.
Well, I mean, they could still lose this week and then not get in the playoffs, and then they're losers.
They're gonna make it.
Hey, have a positive mental attitude, Tom. They are going to get in the playoffs and lose to the 49ers
and then lose
in the first round.
I am all right, but like reasonable expectations. This year I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'd be like, yeah, okay, like
that's right, yeah.
It's like
there's a couple listener comments I wanted to respond to. Nick Lindsay asked if I read everything read on my Kindle or iPad. Yeah, I had my tablet, and it was everything I read on vacation was through Hoopla, which is awesome.
Hoopla.
The Hoopla is great. Even though I still in my library I only get 4 checkouts a month, which it sucks.
Sucky library.
What else? And he also asked what we thought of the HBO Watchmen show. If we thought that felt dated as well, and I feel the opposite. I felt like it was. Follow me. I feel like the HBO Watchmen series was a really nice update that in 10 years will probably feel dated.
Maybe.
I think that makes sense.
I'm careful to say dated because I just think there's parts of Watchmen that are like about things that at the time felt like Vietnam and impending were like of that time very much. And like now, I mean, people don't talk about Vietnam. Yeah. Like it's not as, pressing as that. So as opposed to like, I guess I'm just careful to say dated because I still think Watchmen's like an awesome story. It's just not like as the meaning of those events doesn't mean the same as when it came out.
Right.
Like what that stuff meant.
It's not a story, but it's not as socially relevant as it was in 1985.
Yeah, it's not dated in the sense of like reading it makes you feel like this was written in a different era, or like the language or the sophistication.
It's not like reading a Silver Age comic,
right?
Like EC comics, where everything is exposition, right?
Yeah, it's like dated and just like the references are now of a certain time, and you're like,
like DKR suffers from that with as much Reagan as is in there.
Now,
does Reagan, is he just a stand-in for every president?
I don't know about every president, but certainly conservatives, presidents, and warmongers, and we're not, we haven't gotten rid of those, so they keep popping up.
I feel like if there was like 800 Reagan jokes or like things that were like, then it would be like, okay, like this is okay enough. But I think like because he uses Reagan as a symbol of something that I think is always present, like it doesn't
American jingoism. Yeah.
Like you don't need to know who Reagan is to like understand what that character in that book is, like you get it.
There's always going to be some slick-haired, blue tie and suit wearing politician who you can relate that to. Yeah, unfortunately, I think so.
Yeah, that's fair.
Watchmen, the TV show. I don't know if dated is kind of a weird thing with it, because I mean it's set in the future of Watchmen, which would have made it like the 90s. But
yeah.
I think the Ozymandias stuff is that will travel very, very well, because that was just fucking bonkers. I think a lot of the political social commentary stuff may, it's, hopefully, in 20 years, maybe racism isn't as bad.
I mean, when you think about the like fear of nuclear war, like the trauma of Vietnam, sure, those specific things are of a time, but I mean, I think our culture can identify with the damage of like wasting humans and money on wars that don't do anything. Like that's not guys, like
we keep making the same mistakes. It's not like you can relate to it. I read an interesting thing. I had sent it to some friends, and it was I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I wouldn't mind just sort of briefly paraphrasing it. So it was a post by a comedian named Neil Brennan, who's a really bright guy. He used to write. He was like the head writer for the Chappelle Show, and real good stand-up comedian. But he said he wanted to give people perspective, and he said, imagine you were born in 1900. When you were 14, World War I starts and ends on your 18th birthday, with 22 million people killed. Later in the year, a Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until you are 20. 50 million people die from it in those 2 years. When you're 29, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%. Global GDP drops 27%. That runs until you're 33. The country nearly collapses along with the world economy. When you turn 39, World War II starts. You aren't even over the hill yet. But when you're 41, the United States is fully pulled into World War II. Between your 39th and 45th birthday, 75 million people perish in the war, and the Holocaust kills 12 million. At 52, the Korean War starts, and 5 million perish. At 64, the Vietnam War begins, and it doesn't end for many years. 4 million people die in the conflict. Approaching your 62nd birthday, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tipping point in the Cold War. Life on our planet as we know it could well have ended. As you turn 75, the Vietnam War finally ends. Think of everyone on the planet born in 1900. How do you survive all that?
Yeah, that's banana. You are born before flight, and in your lifetime, man is on the moon.
Yeah, that's the good part. That's the bad part is you watch millions and millions and millions of people die over your lifetime. Yeah. Nothing but horror. And it's sort of like we just keep making the same fucking mistakes. Sure. But it's like it is some perspective in the sense of like, we I don't know, I work with a lot of young people in their 20s, and there's not a lot of hope right now in that generation. They look at a lot of things very negatively in this country, but you look at that and you go, what are you fucking like? Are you kidding me? Like, what is it exactly that you're complaining about? Yeah. Yes, there's lots of problems in this. There always will be. There always has been. But holy shit, if like, imagine living your entire life with nothing but war and destruction and poverty and yeah, it's not, things can always get better, but that
life
perspective
before vaccines.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother
fucking polio, man. People died of measles.
I just thought that was an interesting sort of like post out there, and going back to sort of, are things topical in the sense of, because we never quite get out of that cycle of doing the same stupid shit as a society. Yeah. And so, the stuff is topical. It's always, you can watch something, read something from 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And,
and I'll bring it back to, around comics. One of the things that entire timeline has in common is that you can follow that through cartooning. I mean, cartooning has, always been that communication tool to the masses, whether it's thought of as lowbrow or not, but even starting with what Yellow Boy, or whatever the first like published comics are. It's cool that we follow a medium that has always been there to communicate and express what is going on in those times through cartoons, whether they're editorial strips or whatever. It's that medium has been great at having commentary through all of that.
Absolutely. I mean, any of the art forms, I think it's a reflection. Tom, were we talking about that a couple weeks ago? It's just sort of like the reflection of art, and like how it just, or was that someone else where I was talking with like watching things? It's another part of like perspective of sort of like watching art reflect society in the past. For me, it's like hard to see that as it's happening. You know what I mean? Like to watch like movies or read books today that are published today and sort of like see the influence of society on that art. But to look at stuff from 20 years ago or 30 years ago and go, oh, like Dark Knight or Watchmen, or it's like to see how it's a reflection of society, and it's a response to those things.
It wasn't me, unless I was
okay.
very drunk when we talked about it. Sounds like a good conversation.
I don't know who I was talking to about it.
Inebriated pontification.
Yeah.
No.
Nothing more fun. So February 12th of this year will mark 17 years of Around Comics.
Whoa.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of crazy? We're closing in quickly on 20 years of doing Around Comics and being friends and talking comics.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Marta and I just celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary last week, and we started the show before we were married.
Kind of insane. Yeah. February 12th, 2006 was our third episode. I don't know whatever happened to episode 1 and 2, and people have asked.
I think we pulled those.
Yeah, they were pretty bad, right? Like,
no. Imagine, guys, what a bad version.
Remember, we did those first like 10 episodes in my 1-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Square.
No, did we?
Yeah.
No, we didn't. We were at Dark Tower, because I remember Tom coming to Dark Tower. Oh, absolutely.
Because I remember we did the Phil Hester interview at my kitchen table.
Well, we might have done some in your apartment, but we absolutely did. Because I can remember Tom, because we did a couple of episodes, and we brought different people in. It was me and you, and we had a couple of different people come in. Beatty, Matt Summer, and then Tom came in because you knew him from the Geek Speak boards, right?
Yeah.
And then Tom came in and we did episode 3, and I can remember him leaving the shop, and I turned to you and went, "That's the guy. That is the." I'm like, "That is the guy we need on the show."
That's the third person.
Yeah,
we found the balance between me and Sal.
Yeah. It was there was no question. Like that was
17 years later.
And 17 years later, it's still, we haven't figured it out.
And Tom's the same person. He doesn't care about this. He's just around.
That's not true.
Chris still, hyperbolating all over the place.
I've toned down a little bit.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, I mean, you were even more effusive in your praise.
Oh, I was out of control
back in the day. Yeah, you gotta slow down.
And if we're gonna throw out platitudes, it's New Year and Sal pointed this out. You guys have made me a better comics fan. You've really made me think about comics and think critically. I thank the show and I thank you guys, and I hope that we do that for other people. But you guys have made me a better comics fan.
Wow.
Well, you guys have made me a better man. I'll just say that.
You guys have made me a worse person. Bar. You guys have definitely made me a worse person. Definitely worse. Absolutely, 1000% a worse person.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, what are we gonna say to each other at the 20th anniversary? I mean, it's only 3 years away. That's
goodbye.
Yeah.
Aww.
Episode 600. We'll be right around episode 600.
600. Yeah, if we keep going.
Yeah, I still look forward to it, man. Still look forward to it every week.
Chris will be, God knows what you'll be into by then.
We'll be talking about the same things: Watchmen,
same
Dark Knight, Bronze Age comics.
Same bullshit.
All right, before we go, James Gunn, we know, is the new sort of head of DC Studios. They are their plan is, sort of rebranding, relaunching the whole DC universe in film. And at one point he had sort of put out a tweet about like, tell me everything you want to tell me about DC Comics, what I should be doing at DC Comics in like,
Is he insane?
One sentence. He has fun with, but
yeah.
If there was something like one character or group or property of DC that you would want to see James Gunn make into a movie, what would the movie be, and who would maybe be in it, and maybe like who would direct it or something? And just kind of I know I'm putting you guys on the spot asking this, but
I mean, I'd like to see like a James Gunn approach to like a Flash movie in Central City with like the Rogues. Like what that would be, like sort of a lighter story, but with, like, I don't know. I think seeing what he did with like Suicide Squad, of like taking kind of like C and D list characters and kind of making it kind of fun. It'd be interesting to see like what he could do with something maybe a little more structured, like a Central City type movie.
I have two answers.
Oh my god!
He can never.
Just follow the rule. Just pick one.
I think it would be fun to see him tackle the fourth world. But I would love to see a James Gunn, Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal movie or TV show.
I would love to see a fourth world movie that, if it was like the Kirby comics, where it was like, what if we just did the opening splash scene every like 5 pages, the movie equivalent of
that's what I want to see. I want to see that. Yeah,
like every 5 pages, it's like hell yeah, it's like a big opening scene, but just takes place 5 pages in.
Yeah, because I think we can all agree it's like the fourth world is just chock full of amazing ideas. The execution is not always from a. It's a slog. It can be a slog, but man, great ideas.
I think I'd like to see Miles Teller as Green Lantern.
Oh,
okay,
okay.
As Hal, coming right off of Top Gun, Maverick. You put him back in the jet plane. He's a fighter pilot. You do the straight, Hal Jordan origin story. All about. I don't know who would direct it. You need somebody good, action. Maybe the Russo. Nah, the Russo brothers are too big. Like someone. But yeah, I think Miles Teller would be an excellent Green Lantern. I think he'd be awesome. And like, I still want to see a good Green Lantern movie.
Yes,
it's gonna
me
happen.
too.
It'll happen. It's too good of a character for it not to happen.
Too much Ryan Reynolds stink still on it.
And be like, I mean, it's just like, I would like the DC movies to be better. There's been some pretty good ones. Aquaman is still an incredibly fun movie.
It really is.
Yeah.
The
first 3/4 of Wonder Woman were fantastic.
The original, the first
first Gal Gadot one.
Yeah.
Why do you say 3/4? You just don't like the
end
fight?
Was very, it's like it was like 3/4 of this movie, and then it's like the total Zack Snyder ending.
Or like they're setting it up to be that like the God of War is just like inside every man, and then it was like, no, actually, he's right over. He's right over there.
He's that guy.
Fight him now.
I was like, okay, but no, it was still like it's a pretty charming movie, and like very watchable.
Yeah, I wonder if the 300 soundtrack kicks in, and then
I wonder if they're going to. Because Henry Cavill is out as Superman.
Yeah.
It sounds like Black Adam is done. The Rock is no longer. There's not going to do any more Black Adam. I wonder if Gal Gadot is going to be Wonder Woman anymore.
I hope so, because she's awesome.
And then I wonder about the kid who's the Flash, because that movie's supposedly coming out.
Yeah, that guy. That guy is.
He's got a lot of things going.
Yeah, he's kind of the new Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, he got some things.
He got some stuff.
How's that movie not been like? How have they not just been like? I guess we're gonna shelve this bad boy for a little while. They're like,
well, I mean, they shelved the Batwoman or Batgirl movie, right? Like, and that was like done, and that was like $100 million they just threw away.
They took the tax write off.
But Flash, they're gonna just forge ahead with a guy that just has repeatedly demonstrated that he's fucked up and can't handle
that
fame.
Movie is never coming out.
They say it is, but
that movie is never coming out.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Scott? You got anything else? Was
it Bad Batch season 2 premiered this week? First 2 episodes. It's awesome. I love that Star Wars animated universe.
Pew 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 pew.
A lot of pew pews. It's great.
I don't know if it's New Zealand accent. Is that they all have a New Zealand accent? Do they all have?
Well, yeah, man. Every clone. Jango Fett, man.
Man, that got backed into such a gig.
But are accents genetic?
They are in the Star Wars universe.
In the Star Wars universe, genetic accents.
Yeah. They should all talk like those weird like aliens from whatever the floating
Kaminoans.
Camino. They should speak like Camino, right? But no, they've got a New Zealand accent.
Did they record? Did they just have like? Did they just put Jango Fett in like a recording booth and go, okay, we need you to like
just talk
for hours so we can train the clones how to sound like you?
Yeah, I forget the voice actor for all the clones, but he does all the voices. It's like in Bad Batch, he's credited for like 3/4 of the cast.
And you get paid,
right?
It's not like you get paid like if you're one actor playing multiple roles, you're getting paid more than as
for
an
each
actor.
role.
You're getting something more. Yeah, because
that's a gig. That's a good gig, man.
Gig.
Yeah, because like for voice acting, and I only know this from doing commercials, you can't have one person be multiple characters and pay them just the rate as one character.
Yeah.
Like if the idea is that they're separate characters, you're getting paid.
How much would Mel Blanc have been worth these days? Like he probably got paid a salary. Do 1,000 voices, Mel. Do every voice
voice.
We're gonna pay you the standard salary.
Yeah, it would be insane.
Yeah,
it'd be insane. Yeah.
It's
so good for that dude. You got that voice acting gig.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bad Batch is good. If Tom, have you watched it with the kids yet?
I watched the first season. I haven't watched the new season yet.
It's just the first two episodes. It's good Star Wars, man. It is such a great time to be a Star Wars fan.
Pew pew pew.
Pew pew.
Pew, pew. I started watching the first season. I think I watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
3. I don't know. I can't get into it.
Yeah.
I can't get into cartoons anymore. I don't know why.
Yeah, you've got a cartoon block.
Yeah, I just don't give a shit about cartoons for some reason.
Right.
I want film. I don't want nerds. I want people with a camera. I want some guy with a camera making choices. I don't want some fucking nerd.
Yeah, I want to feel the director screaming at a camera operator that they're not moving fast enough.
Yeah. Did you guys watch? Have you watched Glass Onion yet?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah. How'd you like it?
I did.
I liked it.
I liked it. I liked it more than
Knives Out.
Yeah, Knives Out.
I don't think I liked it as much as Knives Out, but
I think it's like
I liked it more than Knives Out because I think it didn't take itself as seriously. It was very much. It felt much more like a comedy.
Yeah, definitely. I think like I'm curious to see what he does going forward. Like, because part of me was like, oh, that's interesting. He kind of like took the first one and kind of dialed certain things up and dialed other things back. Like, I wonder what the next one will be. Like, is it going to have that same tone, or is he going to dial up different things depending on
the other way,
like what he feels
really, like dark,
yeah. It was interesting. I mean, it's funny. We were talking about this, and I know we're trying to wrap up, but I'll just say, the Ryan Johnson, he makes like they're popcorn movies. They're like not that serious. They're like fun.
They're fun.
Like
they're
clever.
fun.
But somehow the film discourse has like cast it as like
genius.
It's like this guy's like a revolutionary filmmaker, and it's like, oh, he's really good. Like they're really clever, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like this guy knows how to make like
they are Agatha Christie movies.
Like don't discount like someone who can just like make entertainment.
Right.
That's
not at all.
Yeah. Like a beginning, middle, and end, right? Like I think reading a thing where he was talking about like just trying to tell a story like that has like not like a serialized thing, like how like movies have shifted.
If I was Tom Cruise's agent, I would say, Tom, you have everything you do from this point forward has to be basically where in some way the film is making fun of rich white people.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise would be the biggest he is the biggest actor in Hollywood. But that's what I feel about Ryan Johnson, like the Glass Onion and Knives Out. It's like these are decent sort of mystery movies.
Yeah.
But people have like glommed onto them because it's like, oh, we're gonna make fun of rich white people. And that all of a sudden elevates it to some sort of like, brilliance that I was just like, what? I don't understand.
If it's brilliant as much as it is kind of the obvious thing to do right now.
Well, but people act like it's brilliant, and it's like, you're making.
What I love about it is that as we talk about different films and film history, we all love the giant ensemble cast, like Ocean's 11 and that kind of stuff. And I don't feel like there's enough of that in Hollywood, and seeing something like Knives Out and Glass Onion, it gives you that amazing ensemble cast of all of like, the Hollywood.
We'll get a bunch of stars and we'll have them play like big characters.
Right.
Like like where they're just like, and that's where the entertainment value is like there's big characters doing like outlandish things, and like
it honestly reminds me of a lot of the sort of like road pictures of the 40s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just sort of like, hey, we'll get Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe, and we'll put them all in this movie, and they're just going to have fun. Yeah. And the movie doesn't have to be that good because you're just so entertained with watching these stars being stars and being fun. But there is this weird thing. It's like between Ryan Johnson and like what's his name? Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele's another. It's like, oh, these are good horror movies. These are decent, like but people sort of elevate it to like, oh, it's fucking Hitchcock, or it's it's like some sort of brilliant. I'm like, no, not really. Not. I mean, there's nothing revolutionary about what they're doing. He's doing with his. They're decent. They're good, like enjoyable horror movies. Yeah. But I don't quite understand the discourse sometimes on some of the like people want to elevate things to this brilliant level.
Well, there's too many people like me that it has to be the best or the worst thing.
Well, I think I also think the fact that they make like contained little stories in a way gives them there's more to like talk about.
Like people could grab onto things. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, it's sort of easy to sort of jump on. Although I mean, all the best of lists of this year, it's like Top Gun Maverick. And I'm like, it's the same fucking movie. It's the same guy. You already saw this movie. Why is this the best of 2022? It's the same fucking movie you watched 20 years ago. Yeah. Like, why is this so genius?
Yeah. I've always seen the footnote of, and I know it's for nostalgia, but I just have to put it on there.
Yeah. So in a sense, I think that's part of it is just like those movies offer, whether you like them or dislike them, there's something to talk about because it's sort of like, they're this finite thing. It's like, that's what it is, where it's like, a lot of the superhero movies and the big franchise movies kind of feel like they just exist. And it's sort of like, I don't know, is this good or bad? Or I don't even know what to say about it. It just like is there.
Do you guys feel that? And I understand that we're kind of the streaming wars, as they've been called, are starting to slow down, and we're not going to have as much of the avalanche of content that we've had in the last few years. But I saw some of these top 10 lists, and I kept catching myself going, "Oh shit, yeah, that was this year, wasn't it?" It's like, "Oh yeah, Stranger Things." It feels like Stranger Things. What season was it, 4 or whatever? I feel like that came out like 2-3 years ago, and no, it was like March.
Well, I think it just consumes so fucking much. Like between whether it's like working from home or just like the idea of like COVID kind of keeping. I don't know about you guys, but like I don't venture out into the world nearly as much as I did pre-COVID.
No.
You know what I mean? Like even though I don't have any fear of COVID at this point, or I don't have any like sort of qualms about that, there's just part of me that's just like, I'm fine being at home.
I got really good at living inside of these walls.
Yeah.
But
I consume a shit ton of media because of it. Like movies and TV shows, I consume so much now. And the podcasts sort of contribute to that, but it is something where it's like I'm gonna binge, and we binge watch stuff, so it's like, oh, you binge watch Stranger Things in 4 days, and then you've watched 75 fucking TV shows since then. It's gonna feel like it was 2 years ago.
We were talking about DKR, and I think that's part of the difference. And this is, get ready, Tom. It's old timey old man comic talk now. Back when we were kids, those comics resonate. I mean, I still, can think about X-Men number 137 and almost recall that page for page because I read it so fucking much because there weren't that many comics out at the time. And so you would buy a comic and you would pore over it and over it. You would read it, 4, 5, 6 times before the next issue would come out. And so, now I think things are a lot more, you read it and throw it off to the side because there's a truckload of stuff that you're still trying to get to.
No, I think that's a really good point. I think, but does that point out are there so much more better things now, but there's just so many more things?
Yes.
But the answer is yeah. But the level is raised, you know what I mean? Like there's the quality level of stuff now is so much higher than it was, but there's also so much more of it.
I went to the theater to see Raiders of the Lost Ark 14 times when it came out.
That's excessive.
14 times. Because it was awesome. And because I was at that age where what the fuck else was I going to do?
I did see Rocky 3 like 11 times in the theater, though.
Can you imagine going to the theater to see a movie more than once now?
I did actually. I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood like 3 times in theaters.
But that's
it's a rare thing. I mean, that's a definitely rare thing that I would do that. I rarely go to the theater at all to see a movie. I still haven't, like, you know, my friend was bugging me to go see Avatar, the new Avatar. I'm like, I literally said this to him. I'm like, I don't know. I watched the Banshees of, what is it? The Banshees of Inisherin or whatever.
And I'm like,
that's 2 dudes on an island, and it's a great fucking movie. Like, it's like, I don't need a spectacle 3-hour long CGI, you know, gigantic thing to entertain me. Like, 2 really good actors on an island who aren't friends anymore. Like, that movie was fascinating.
With shit.
Yeah. Which I didn't watch that before our best of episode for Film Force 5, but if I would have, it would have been on.
Yeah, it's really good.
Really good. But yeah, I know, I agree with you. I think it's it's just where we are. I don't know. But I do definitely consume way more stuff now.
And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I'm just like, you know, the Bad Batch season 2, the first episodes came out. I think I watched both of them before like 9 o'clock in the morning, and now I gotta wait because I couldn't.
Now I gotta wait.
Now I gotta wait a whole week.
Yeah, I don't know. I hate waiting, but I understand that to some degree. Like, the anticipation can enhance what you're waiting for, as opposed to like, oh, do I just kind of like take it for granted and wade through 12 episodes of Stranger Things and maybe don't even enjoy it that much because I'm just like, I want to get to the end. I just want to watch it all. I want to know what happens.
Yeah. You got to eat that entire burrito in one sitting, man.
Yeah. And to be fair, like the streaming, like Netflix, especially, like they create things like comics where it's like, it's just to keep you going. It's, you know, comics are built that way. Like, the end is just to get you to the next issue.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's how comics are built and go on and on and on and on and on. And that's how Netflix has done the same thing of like, one episode is just to, the ending of one episode is just to get you to go to the next episode.
That was Stan Lee, man. He started making comics and he's like, no, we will never have the words "the end." It's got to have the tease to the next episode or to the next issue.
Happy 100th birthday to Stan. It was recent.
Yeah.
Happy 100. My daughter and I are planning on getting matching Stan Lee tattoos, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Last bit of like social news and whatnot. U.S. Congressman Robert Garcia plans to be sworn in as a member of Congress on an original copy of Superman #1 that he is being loaned from the Library of Congress is going to loan it to him to get sworn in on.
Cool. That's an interesting. Wait, he's swearing himself in on the comic book?
He's going to be sworn into Congress on a copy of his immigration, his citizenship certificate, a picture of his mom and dad, and an original copy of Superman #1.
Interesting. I remember he tweeted out like right afterwards that he was elected that he's like, I'm freaking out. This is the congressional reading room at the Library of Congress. I can pull any comic book from what is the largest public comic collection in the country and read them here. Let's go. It's just like, okay, that's a nerd. Like,
total nerd. And it's awesome. I love it.
What state is he from?
He's California, I think.
Okay.
Let me see. I've got the story. I forget what. Yeah, it's a California. It's like California 8 or something like that.
Well, you might want to get out of that library there, Bobby, and get to work on California because
can't tell there's a fucking speaker. He can't even get sworn in.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
He's just hanging out in the Library of Congress, reading fucking Golden Age comics, nerding out until McCarthy figures his shit out.
Does anyone really enjoy reading Golden Age comics, though, or is he, it's
got to be cool to be like, yeah, man.
It'd be cool to see them.
Yeah,
like, I don't
know
if I want to read them, but all right. Is that it? Are we done for this?
Yeah. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. First episode of 2023. We're chugging along towards 2026, our 20th anniversary in 2026. Start the countdown now. We're only 3 years away from February 12th. February 12th. My birthday is February 11th. So February 12th, 2026. Maybe we'll do it on my birthday because that's actually when we recorded that episode.
Oh, that's right.
It was on my birthday. February 11th, 2026, our 20th anniversary. There you go. And I'll be 55 years old if I make it. So if I make it,
I think you'll be all right. I think you're shoe in.
All right. There we go. Start the countdown.
All right, guys. Hey, remember, if you want to throw a couple shekels our way, you can check us out at patreon.com/around comics. Remember to check out Film Force 5. It's where Sal and Will, and most of the time me, unless we have a much smarter guest, which is once again a low bar to get over. We talk about our top 6 movies in a chosen category and whittle them down to 5, and it's a lot like this. We just like to sit around and talk about stuff that we love. So check out Film Force 5. That's what I got. Anything else?
That's it for me.
I want to thank everyone for chiming in on the comments section. Always love to see that. Greg and Philip and Nick and a few others. So appreciate that. You can do that by checking out the YouTube live stream, which is every week on Thursday, right around 8:30. We will be back at that time next week. In the meantime,
in between time. In regards to that. The live stream is live, but then it goes dead until the following Monday when it goes live and the new podcast episode. If you'd like to get the podcast sooner than that on the Friday after we record it, you have to be a Patreon. So you get it early if you're a patron, ad free if you're a patron. You get it 3 days early. Otherwise, you got to wait till Monday to get the episode. So there you go.
All right.
In between time,
we'll be everywhere again.
And around comics.
Dun, 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 dun.
Fuck 2022.
Comics.